Well, we're here at the Boatworks. I've been walking around and I've just spotted this beautiful ILIAD 62. I think I've spotted Michael Crook up the top there. I'm going to invite him down. I think we'll get him into the captain's chair and find out what's going on at ILIAD. G'day, Michael.
G'day, how you going?
Well, welcome to Series 3 of Bulwarks and Bulldust. I'm Wally Tench. I'm joined with Lee Randall here to my left, and to my further left we have John Curnow, and we're down here at the Boatworks. We'd like to welcome Michael Nod Crook to the captain's chair. Thank you, Michael, for coming in this afternoon. It's wonderful to have you. We won't get into the background of the nickname Nod. We've moved on from that. But now, Nod, you're General Manager with ILIAD, and ILIAD is a fabulous craft, power catamarans, and perhaps you could take us a little bit back to the start of when it all started and how it all came about.
Well, firstly, thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. So General Manager ILIAD Catamarans. It's a company that we founded in 2016, range of power catamarans, which started off at 50 feet. Currently up to design of a 75, but we've actually manufactured up to a 70. So back to the start of it, 2016, we were actually approached by a naval architect, Riccardo Bulgarelli, who's our designer. As you do, you look at somebody's renders, but more to the point, his story was that he wanted to design a range of power cats that weren't specific to the European market, which appealed to us. But he was looking for some people in Asia Pacific region that had some experience of power catamarans and might be able to help advise on design, configurations, what people want in this kind of a market. So that's how we teamed up together, became affiliated with each other, and that was early days. We went into design and designed the first 50.
Right. What sort of differences are there between, say, the European market and the Australian market, just for the people that are listening that are probably unfamiliar with that?
Well, as you know, like most Australians, migratory, long range. So people here in Brisbane are off up to the islands once a year. So, the boats we were selling from the European market, which had sort of evolved from brands that had started with sailing catamarans, they started building their own power catamarans, but really the finish on these boats wasn't reflecting what you were seeing in mono power. So, we weren't enticing people over from owning Riviera or a Maritimo into buying a production power cat. So that was kind of the second thing we wanted to do was build a nicer quality finished boat. And then after that, semi-customization, which is the other thing we offer.
Yeah, the boats look wonderfully customised. John's been talking to me on the side going, ask him about the prototype. Now, tell us about the prototype. What is this prototype?
Yeah. Well, the prototype, 2016, as I said, we started designing the first 50. It's a good story now it's done, but it took us a year to build the first prototype boat. We actually launched it. We sea trialed it. We weren't actually that happy with the performance of it. All the deck tooling, superstructure we kept, but we actually redesigned the hull and built a second boat, which was a great learning curve for us. We built the first, I think we started 2016, we launched the first prototype at the end of 17, 18, then redeveloped that, and the actual second hull we built was the boat that we launched to market. So 2019, we launched the first 50.
Well, that seems to make a lot of sense to me, to build a prototype, test it, live with it, understand the product, and then make necessary modifications and adjustments to it. Do not many boat manufacturers go through that process?
It's quite funny watching other brands, and I see their first boats hit the water. Power catamarans, all catamarans, are very weight sensitive. Once you build a hull design and you possibly go over that threshold of what you'd call the maximum weight, performance drops off. Our boat was okay, our prototype, but in taking it for a run and things, we weren't that happy with the performance of it. All we had to do is redesign, fortunately, our tooling for the first hull was only temporary tooling. We didn't build a set of permanent molds for that. So it was very easy to actually step into our permanent mold by building the second set of permanent tooling, and then we got the performance that we wanted. But in watching other people launch their first boat, perhaps not having the luxury of that time or stopping, I see a lot of boats heavy in the water, sitting low in the water.
Don't you just move the bootstrap?
That's right. You can do that. Sometimes the through-hull fittings are a bit tricky to move.
Just fill them with Sikaflex and put the new ones through, is it? But I think the other thing too, out of all of that, was the amount of time that the team from ILIAD, all capitals by the way, especially for Kate, and the thing was though that the amount of time that the team spent on board, living on board, being on board, like the plan was for these extended use, extended range catamarans. It wasn't like it's what we thought. It was actually what you went and did that created what is now such a popular brand around the Asia Pacific and US markets.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like a lot of people come on, and I always answer when people say, they come on board, they love the boat, and they said, how did you know how to design this boat or give the input to get the final design on this boat? Is we really knew after 10, 15 years of selling European boats in this market what didn't sell boats. Like we'd lose sales through companionway steps being too steep, Older people couldn't get up and down the companionway steps. The showers were too small. The beds weren't walk around. Even the width of the cabin doors. Some European brands, you've got some skinny Italians walking through it, it's fine. Get some big Queenslander trying to fit through his cabin door going sideways, the bloke doesn't like it. But even on our prototype, we built the flybridge mould, and when I got to the yard, we walked up through it even, and I'm not that wide a guy, but going up the companionway stairs to the flybridge, as I went up through the hatch there, too narrow. We recut it out, we made it wider. We made sure that the steps going down into the owner's suite, not so much on the other side, but actually had less of a rake on the steps, so it was easier for them to walk up and down the steps. It's all these little things. And once we'd gone into development, we had a lot of fun with it. I remember Mark and I were at Cannes Boat Show, and we'd just come straight from the factory, and we literally had to pick, because we put the non-slip was in the mould, we had to go around the whole of the boat show just feeling all of the gel-coated non-slip to see which one we wanted, taking pictures of it, and we did that, which was fun. But I decided I'd take on the cabin door challenge. I didn't have a tape measure, I just had a piece of string. So what we did is we went around every brand with the piece of string, went as wide as we could till we got to the end mark. And then I took it to the factory, to the boardroom, put the piece of string on the table. I said, you see that end mark? Our door has to be wider than that. So we had the widest doors in the market. And it's little things like that make the difference when you walk through the boat.
Yeah, and I think the other big thing is that space was always the driving force, if you like. Space in cabin, space in main saloon, just space.
It is for some people. Our point of difference, as I said, is long range. And so long-range liveaboard cruising, yes. Having been in it now for 10 years, some people buy them and they're still doing the same thing. They're just doing the occasional bit of coastal, or they're keeping the boat in the Whitsundays. But the difference is that, we do have a lot of storage on board.
This is a quick ad break. And we're back.
Not sitting on your laurels, there are some new models underway. We've got a brand new 53 out there, and we've got the new hybrid version. Then there's a 60, and as I say, there's work going away on a 75. Could you maybe run us through what's happening with your product evolution just at the moment, please?
Yep, sure. So we launched with the 50. We had that in the market for a few years, and then our smallest model has become the new 53, which has been in production for 2 years now. We build a flybridge version and a non-flybridge version, or sedan version of that boat. And that's just evolved into the new launch, which is our 53 off-grid hybrid boat. We've teamed up with a company, it's an Italian brand called eMotion. We're just doing parallel hybrid propulsion. So that means we have the motor or the generator between the block and the gearbox. But as well as that, we've redesigned the roof on the boat to carry a lot of solar. So we're going to, as well as some superstructure, our 53F off-grid hybrid is going to have 7.5 kilowatts of solar on as standard. With the eMotion, we're carrying high voltage lithium packs on there. But rather than the focus a few years ago, which you saw a lot of brands proposing or promoting that they were doing this long range just electric propulsion, a lot of the talk or a lot of the thing they were putting in the press was a bit spurious.
Maybe greenwashing?
The main thing now is that everybody in the market is coming up with some solution to fast recharging and non-reliance on generators. So as well as being able to propel the boat under electric propulsion, we have the redundancy of the parallel hybrid, but the main thing is with this eMotion high voltage is fast recharge. So from 30% capacity up to 90% is about 30 minutes full recharge, and sitting on anchor in good weather, we're predicting about a day and a half before you have to run an engine for 30 minutes. And that's carrying all loads, DC and AC. So running aircon, everything.
Aircon, cooking, all of the hot water heating, all of the big
Everything's run
ones.
through the inverted.
The wine fridge.
Certainly on board your boat, that's for sure. Quite a few other people, I dare say, multiple wine fridges, that is, multiple wine fridges, not just one.
And then after that, of course, and then we've moved on to our 62, which, as I said, we had the 50 run, we built the 62, we built a one-off 70. It's time now for the 62 to be superseded, and we're launching a new 60.
Yeah, right. They look terrific. I mean, the livability on board, I mean, the room on them, they look like they create an absolute lifestyle dream for the owner. What sort of feedback are you getting from the owners?
Well, today everybody is. We had very few gone for actual resale. Most people have still got their ILIADs or are moving into the new model or a bigger one. Everybody has loved the fact that, well, most people have actually embraced the fact that we do option the semi-customization. So we don't actually manufacture. No dealers are holding stock. So every boat is built to order. So most people are going down the road of that semi-customization. I liken us to custom home building. It's a very similar process.
Boutique.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, stone bench tops, picky timber flooring, the level of the cut of the veneer on the walls, you know, the level of gloss on the varnish. And once they get the option of being able to do this, they do differing levels go down the road of designing their own boat. So it has a much more personal feel to it. Yeah, everyone's enjoying
I can imagine. And so manufacturing facility is offshore?
Yep. So we manufacture in Zhuhai, which is in mainland China, just close to Hong Kong.
And how's that from a management? I mean, there's no small feat setting an operation up like this. I mean, offshore manufacturing, you know, sales team, quality control, the whole bit. I mean, for those people that haven't started a business or run a manufacturing and sales and marketing operation, they probably don't understand just the amount of moving pieces to all of that. It's an incredible feat, and obviously a lot of people involved in the business have got a lot of experience, but it's also not a cheap exercise either.
No, and I think it's anybody that gets to the end of their first 10 years, if you told them, would you start that again? We'd probably all question whether we'd do it again, but we're fortunate enough that the evolution and going to the manufacturing side, we started off with a contract builder. He's a partner of ours, and Joe, who is a contract builder, is still part of our team. So like the founding group are still together, but we've actually gone through having a contracted yard. We had limited shed space, so we had another yard in different regions, so our stores were split. You know, not necessarily have a spray booth or a welder, parts were being moved around. It was difficult. So that probably was the first 5 or 6 years. For the last 2 or 3, now in Zhuhai, we leased our own sheds. It's one location, has enough shed space for us to build our current manufacturing and grow. So yeah, we've got through the teething trouble now, and we're at a stage you'd call comfortable, I think. The other thing we're doing is we've actually got to schedule manufacturing now. So rather than each individual boat being to order, every 8 weeks a 53 goes into the molds, whether it be the S, the F, or the off-grid hybrid. And yeah, hopefully we'll have the new 60 in the same sort of format in the next few months.
It's really quite interesting too, because as you mentioned, the ownership is very strongly held. The craft are with their original owner. Not many have already found a second owner, let alone a third owner for some of the earlier ones. But if you think about it, when you started this, it was a very localised to Australia sort of scenario, maybe even a little bit of New Zealand, but even then not so much. It was very much tailored to that. It wasn't long before the Americans got wind of ILIAD, and now, of course, you're selling a lot of ILIADs into the US market. What about the fact that the US market now has a lot of issues around tariff and constraints for vessels coming in built elsewhere? How is all of that inside of the management scenario, given that you do have boats inside moulds every 8 to 10 weeks?
Well, the evolution to the States was prior to going into scheduled production, we were actually filling all of the orders from here. Like the yard was living off this region, being Australia, New Zealand, a few boats up in Southeast Asia. We grew production, had to make a decision as to where we moved next. Just through website inquiry and looking at the market, I thought we had a good boat to go to the States. So we went for 2 years without boats. We went back to basics, ended up in a 3x3 inside the halls with some models, which was...
hard to fit a boat into a 3x3, but...
It was... I guess it was grounding for me to get back to that, like having to stand inside a tent again and you know, peddle our wares. But no, it was good. And we basically, over those 2 years, got a lot of interest, a lot of inquiry. And then as of Miami, a year and a half ago, we launched the boat into the market in the States. We appointed our dealer based in Florida. We had to be reasonably hesitant as to how quickly we expanded the dealer network because we're not large manufacturers. So the fact that we were almost selling all of our boats, there was no point in appointing Europe, you know, appointing someone in the States, some other regional ones, because we couldn't just feed the machine. So we've done the project of the States, and then next year Cannes will be the move to Europe, and hopefully expansion will grow with that. So we've been reasonably steady with that. In answer to your question about the States and tariffs, prior to Donald getting back in on the second run, where he's started to fire out tariffs left, right and centre, in his actual last time he was in, he'd already appointed the China tariffs. So there's a few of us in the industry that had been dealing with this prior to last November. It's reasonably well set up in the States because you can actually have a boat at the front of your house in Florida and actually own it and not have to pay the import duties and taxes because you just register it offshore as a business. So there's a lot of companies at the boat show you can see that are just set up to do that. So that's what the majority of people who are buying a boat like an ILIAD, who can go off to the Bahamas or go down the islands, you have to exit once a year and come back in, and then you have it on a permit. Donald's tariffs now will be affecting a lot of, there are some boat manufacturers, once you start getting a smaller boat, like once you get under 40 feet, if it's manufactured offshore and not now just Chinese, like he's got tariffs on most countries at differing levels, it's going to be a harder sell on some of those. Like the US manufactured will be helping them greatly on smaller boats, which is what Donald obviously wants from it. But yeah, in fact, actually, when people in November, like last year, because Donald made these tariffs very verbal. They said, oh, how are you going to go with this nod? And I said, well, actually, it's made a level playing field for me now, because there was a few of us in the industry, you know, like Aquila, there's a few like Chinese manufactured boats out there that had to go through the spiel and talk about this when someone was coming to a contract. And now most people in the industry have to talk about it.
Exactly. And I think the other thing too for me is that I remember, I think it was 2 Sanctuary Cove boat shows ago, and there was an American buyer who'd flown all the way to buy, I think it was the 62 Flybridge, and that was sort of one of the first, and it was the floodgates, if you like, for the US market. And it was really great to see people who see Nod at a show, you know, would laugh with us about putting Nod in a 3x3 stand. It's a sort of like the caged animal. You know, you're much more animated and alive, especially on the back of the boat, doing what you do so well. So it's really great that from probably about 18 months ago, the US scenario for you has just literally, it's a cavalcade.
Yeah, it's been interesting because out of the boats we've sold in the region, it's quite surprising. We seem to have Mexicans liking Iliads. So we never really promoted, but the first prototype ended up in Mexico. It got sold in Southeast Asia and ended up in Mexico. I'm not sure actually where that boat is now, but since then we've sold another 2 boats to Mexico. And so the major shows in Florida attract all of that region. So everyone from South America, Central America, everybody comes to those as the major shows for the year. So we do a lot of direct sales to unsupported dealer regions.
This is a quick ad break. And we're back.
So the production at the moment per annum numbers would be running at roughly.
Oh yeah, so with the 53, as I said, it's one every 8 weeks. So
One every 8 weeks.
7
In
53s.
total, I guess, for the total production across the range.
Oh, for total production of the range, so we're hoping with this new 60 to get up to this next year about 4 of those per year, and then 6 or 7 of the 53s. We've actually got in our brochure 75. No one's jumped on that. That's just at the point of renders at the moment. That would be a standalone one-off custom build.
Well, especially at that level, given that it'd have the same sort of volumes, about 110 footer.
Yeah.
So it's a very specialist area and a very, as you say, customised area.
Yeah. Well, as you learn, I mean, and we all know, like a one-off custom build of that size, it's a lot of work. As much as we are semi-custom build, we are trying to get this production scheduled and some rhythm happening in the factory. So yeah, focusing now mainly on this 53 of the 3 models of that and the new 60. The new 60 is standard because this has only been designed in the last 6 months. All of the things that were features we had to grow into this off-grid hybrid are now standard on this boat. So all of your AC loads are non-genset reliant on the new 60. It already carries a huge amount of solar as standard. So it's not optional, just comes with it.
And as boats evolve, they tend to get, even though the number's a little bit smaller, the volume's a bit bigger. So is that a real contender to what was the 62 from a space volume point of view? Or
Oh, no, it's just getting a bit smarter really with the boats. What we find with R62, which didn't sell as well as the 50, is it's an interesting size of boat. And this is where you have to build to your markets, and this is really what I find interesting, is that you talk about the States, it's crew cabins, it's fully air-conned, it's enclosed fly bridges, it's, they want cable reels on all the shore they don't want to do anything really. Like, they love the fact that they're going to have crew on board.
We're owner-operator.
Here in Australia, you cannot sell a crew cabin on a 60-foot boat. What we found with our 62 is that the difference between the 50 and the 62 in regards to the additional cabin space and what the benefits were in this region for the owner-operator and the upkeep were negligible. Like, most people kind of stepped down to the smaller boat when they saw the additional cost and the additional work involved in running a 62. So redesigning it into a 60, the main exciting thing is we've put extra companionways down from the foredeck on this boat. So we've actually increased the standalone ensuite cabin space downstairs. So you get more benefits from that than you do of the old 62. But yeah, in the size of the superstructure and just aesthetics, like looking at the boat proportionately, we've reduced a few things.
But I guess the other really big thing too, when this generation of power cat arrived that wasn't a converted sailing cat, it was from the keel up as a power cat, which is sort of that Gen 2 level of craft, and ILIAD certainly pioneered that. Everybody was amazed that they weren't chasing 30, 35 knots. It was much more about sprint speed of maybe 18, but general cruise anywhere from 8 through to 12. It's almost like we just talk about that now, but when it happened, when it occurred, this was quite novel ground to take people coming out of monohulls at 35 knots, and the sprint speed was greatly reduced, but the range and the autonomy was greatly enhanced. Looking back on it now and having the discussions, are you still having discussions with people about outright speed, or is it much more the whole usability scenario, please, Nod?
Yeah, speed is an interesting thing as well, and something that now in the last 10 years I've studied a lot more, or know a lot more about, after frustrating the designer with stupid questions for pretty much all of that time. It's again, with our markets, is ideally if you were talking long range, the reality is that liveaboard long range cruisers are happy sitting on 10 knots all day. Now, you could, if you built a displacement hull, big engines, you could carry as much weight as you liked, as you could have a top speed 13 to 14 knots, great fuel economy, it would be perfect. But in us building a global brand, let's use East Coast states as an example. When you start going north of Florida up into, the Carolinas or Georgia, if it's not doing 24 knots top speed, it's a very hard sell. So an example of the 53s, we went to the biggest we could, the Cummins 550s in there. That ticks the box for these guys. It's 50 miles offshore to the Bahamas. They want a boat that they can, and they do, like they run down fast. And so if we didn't build semi-displacement and have that top speed, that part of the market would fall away from us. But as I mentioned, the reality is most people who are long-range cruisers have the time, are comfortable sitting on that 10 knots passage making. All of ours, as you were talking about, John, all of ours, or our hull designs, mid-range engines, the sweet spot is about 16, 17 knots, which is the speed I go everywhere. And so, so from here down to Sydney straight through, you're about 35 hours. It's one sleep. It's perfect.
And it's a little bit about the journey, not just the destination. So the world is a little bit slower at that pace, but that's not a bad pace.
Well, I find that really 16 to 17 knots, especially when you're passage making, like through the night and stuff, people don't want to really be pushing boats harder than that anyway. But a lot of us are time poor. Like I certainly don't want to be doing 10 knots. So
No, but I think it's really interesting the whole way that the second generation of Power Cat readjusted the speed equation. Yes, there were some people who still had to do low 20s or mid 20s, but mostly everybody could find a home somewhere between 10 and 18-ish.
Yep.
And it's an amazing thing, because when the discussion began 8 years ago or whatever, it was like, oh no, it'll never work. You've got to be able to achieve 30 or more. But that's not the case for these craft.
We don't really in catamaran world, don't forget we don't come directly from mono power and it's that slight difference thing. I guess the boat is a bit more, don't really get many requests for much more speed than that. If we can answer a question into the low mid 20s, people seem comfortable.
Yeah, and I think that some of the manufacturers that have tried to make their catamarans a bit faster outside the Voodoos and those sorts of manufacturers, they really haven't got any traction. I mean, Aquila's had a few false starts with trying to build a faster boat, and it really hasn't kicked. So I think it's more about the economy.
Yeah, and you see, I mean, they market that they put the foil between the hulls on some of the smaller boats and bits and pieces like that, but they don't actually come into effect really until past our top speed anyway.
Yeah, we've talked about this. What's the point in having a boat that's efficient up to 6 knots and above 22 knots? There's a large range of your cruising that you're not going to be doing in that speed range, and it's not efficient at that point in time.
Well, once you start getting up to those speeds, you've got the comfort of the ride, you start getting the noise in the boat, and let's face it, the boats that actually do those speeds might look good. You might get to Sydney a bit quicker, but when you go down inside the hulls and see how much walk-around space you've got in your bunk, you can't have the volume in our hulls and go that fast.
No. This is the thing that it probably exemplifies perfectly the whole, every boat is a compromise of sorts in some ways. Where are you wanting to achieve your maximum benefit, because the trade-off will be visible somewhere else.
Oh yeah, well,
and volume and speed is the classic example.
Well, and the more you think about it, I mean, another one of our positives is the fact that we marketed the boat for Asia Pacific region remote cruising, is that our whole design still has, the protected drivetrain, rudders, so riser at the back there, and then we have the fixed skeg underneath, so they're beachable. Semi-displacement. Once you start putting these factors into what you want as your mission brief, and this is what I've learned, because I keep asking the questions, can we please have everything?
Yeah.
No, you can't. It basically fine-tunes what your hull's going to look like.
Yeah. Well, what does the customer look like? I mean, it sounds like the customer is prepared to go a little slower, not too slow, but a little slower. They want to be living aboard a little bit longer.
That's what Nod's saying. I think you've got to, you have to remove yourself from the monohull mindset, the Rivieras and Maritimos, because they always want more speed. But the catamaran owner, it's just not the mentality.
No, and when you talk about the Riv or the Maritimo thing, and I touched on this earlier, is that, selling production before, with railings that didn't have polished stainless welds, interior finishes that just weren't up to standard, door fittings, draw runners weren't quality products. We were never selling to Riv or Maritimo with anything we imported from Europe. Now we do, because it's mainly guys that have stepped out of those 2 or 3 powerboats they've had, getting to that stage in life where, often it's the wife that's deciding this for them. Come on board the Power Cat, see the room, the volume. I mean, our flybridge areas. Now, the flybridge area on our 53 is that they're looking at like 70 power to get anywhere close to the floor space. So those are really the key selling features to mono power stepping into our boat.
Well, I guess the catamaran also really plays into the multi-generational card very, very, very well. Separate hulls for teenagers, retreats. I mean, I remember when I was on board the 70, that it was like there's an area for that and an area for that, and that's her bathroom, do not go there. These are wonderful things and very, very strong saleable points to a lot of buyers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not just specific to our Power Cat, just the liveaboard space and the floor plans, cockpit areas, etc. It's hard to go past for a holiday.
And stability at anchor and the quiet. I would very much enjoy being on one of those up in the islands. I think I could definitely go for that.
This is a quick ad break. And we're back.
Well, no, look, I think just wanted to touch briefly on, you and I have been selling boats around each other for a lot of years now. We've sold in a couple of different marketplaces too. Do you think we've actually recovered in the new boat sales from COVID and where we were a couple of years ago?
Oh, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Like, I thought things were going to go quiet prior to COVID, and then, of course, we had gangbusters. Everyone's still looking back at gangbusters, that year of just glut of sales. But no, it's been pretty steady in this market here. Of course, we're susceptible to exchange rates, like we're building in US dollars. It's actually been a treat actually selling in the States and not having to deal with exchange rates. It's been quiet. Like the last few months have seen sales or inquiry is better. But yeah, we've definitely gone through a slow patch. I'm not sure as to when it's going to pick up around here in the near future.
I don't think you're alone in that.
No, and that's why we see a change in our dealership models and that now, right? We're much happier in-house. You've still got someone on the ground in the US, but a lot of it's a lot more centralised.
Well, we've been very lucky, and actually it's good that you mentioned COVID, is that COVID, as you know, trapped us here for, the best part of 3 years because we had the long run of being isolated in Australia. And I actually thank God because we launched 2019, pretty much a year later, a handbrake came on, Mark, myself and the rest of the team. Thank the absolute Lord, because we would have charged off around the planet, appointed dealers. We were early days of manufacturing. That handbrake coming on, this region which we could control and deal with, we had a huge run of sales. We could bring the boats in, we could observe them locally, maintain them, start to look after them. So yeah, it's one thing I do look up, like nobody actually enjoyed COVID, but for us as a business, we came out the back of that, realised then the reality of how quickly we could grow, keep the quality in place while we did that. So a bit of a blessing for us.
A bit of a refocus time.
Yeah.
And you definitely had the product sorted and nailed, and it is about the high-end pieces of equipment that go on, whether it's ovens or electric blinds or all the rest of it. It's all very much tailored towards that ultimate luxury experience.
We have changed absolutely everything on this boat from the first one, John. So if you mentioned windows, hatches, pick a topic, steering, the rudders, the propellers, pick a topic, I've changed them. The good thing is that once you get to the point of getting all of the running gear, all of your instrumentation right on a 50, when you design the new hull and just transfer that equipment across, we've got Lumar glass windows in the hulls now because we had perspex, expansion, contraction. Everybody has problems with that. We've gone through that. That's one blessing. We've got through that phase now of fingers crossed. We know what we want fitted to the boat, and we just transfer that into the new hull design.
Fantastic! What a great journey! What a great Australian success story. It's still a bit of a journey, but Australian success story, international success story. And it's just been a pleasure to have you on the show this afternoon in the Melfi captain's chair. I'm going to throw to Lee Randall, who's terrific at shouting out for our socials.
Thanks for tuning into Bulwarks and Bulldust again, Season 3. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, give us your feedback. We'd love to hear it. And if you've got any questions for Michael Crook about ILIAD Catamarans, we're happy to send them in his direction.
Yes, we are. Thank you very much, Michael, for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Michael.
Thank you.
Michael, that was terrific. We really appreciate you coming down onto Bulwarks and Bulldust. It was lovely to have you in the captain's chair by Melfi. I think you've mentioned that Melfi also did some work on this fabulous ILIAD 62. They're terrific operators. Really great to hear the ILIAD story and what you've been up to. Please accept a cap. And certainly from John and Lee and myself, it's just been terrific to have a chat.
Thanks, Wally. Thanks for inviting me. That was a lot of fun.
All right, pleasure. Thank you.